Do you need to know how to install Windows Server as a virtual machine? Well, stick around for this video and I will walk you through how to get a copy of Windows Server and the installation process to make sure that you do it correctly the first time. But first, if this is the first time that we're meeting, welcome to the channel. My name is John Good, and here I get to spread my passion for cybersecurity training, tips and tricks, and career advice to help you go further. Remember to smash the thumbs up to like this video. Hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss future content, and make sure to leave a comment for the YouTube algorithm. If you like my training and you want more, check out my website at johngood.com to get access to training courses without distracting interruptions or advertisements. Make sure that you sign up for my newsletter using the link in the description to get your free copy of my ebook on cybersecurity careers. You can also join me on the Discord server. The link is in the description. All right, let's get into the video. Look, it doesn't matter if you're a fan of Windows, Linux, or Mac OS. The truth is that a large majority of the companies are using Microsoft Windows as their primary infrastructure operating system. If you're going to pick an operating system to learn that would give you the biggest opportunity, then it's Windows. Before we get too far into this video, I want to point out that this video is part of a series on building experience for cybersecurity. The main focus of this series is building skills with a limited budget or no budget at all for training. The series is especially great for those who are new to cybersecurity or that want to break into cybersecurity. Now, just a reminder, this video is going to focus on getting a copy of Windows Server and installing it as a virtual machine. I'm going to be using VMware Workstation Pro as my virtual machine software, but the process is similar for all the different virtual machine softwares out there. Step one is that you have to get the virtual machine software installed. You can use VMware Workstation Pro like me, or you can use VirtualBox, Hyper-V, Parallels, and so on. There's so many other ones. Step two, you have to get a copy of Windows Server 2019. Now I want to show you how to do that. So in order to get your copy of Windows, you've got to go to the actual Windows website. I'll go ahead and open up a Windows browser here, and I will go to google.com. And now I want to search for Windows Server, and we're going to do evaluation version. Basically something like that. I'm sure there's a lot of different things that you could search for, like trials. And we're going to click this first link. And you can see you get a bunch of different options here, different years like 2016. But what you want to do is you want to get the latest version. So I'm actually going to grab the 2019 version here. And it will bring up this box asking you what kind of file type you want. So for this example, we're going to use the ISO file. So we're going to click ISO and continue. Now, I've already downloaded a version of this, so I've got the ISO on my computer. But when you go to do this, you're going to have to fill out this information. And even if you're already signed into your account, it's still going to make you fill it in. It doesn't automatically populate it. Now that you've downloaded the software, we need to go ahead and install it into our virtual machine software. All right, so this is VMware Workstation Pro. And again, usually when I'm recommending virtual machine software, I like VMware Workstation Pro. It has a lot of great features, and it really just works with a lot of different virtual machines. But again, the steps are going to be very similar for a lot of different virtual machine softwares. But the first thing you're going to do if you're following along in VMware Workstation Pro is you're going to go to File, and then you're going to do New Virtual Machine. Okay, and we're going to do a typical recommended installation here. Go ahead and hit Next. Then you have to browse to the ISO file, which is what we just downloaded. We're going to do Browse, and mine is on my desktop. So it's just going to be right there, and I'll go ahead and click Open. And then go ahead and click Next. Okay, so on this screen, you don't have to enter a product key. If you don't enter one, it's going to automatically put you into evaluation version, meaning that you'll be given 180 days, and then at that point, you have to activate or the installation is done. You can't use it anymore. So because we're just doing this as a demo, we're not going to put in a product key, and this would be the same if you're training and anything like that. Unless you want to keep the installation going, then you could put in a product key. But again, if you don't, then you just have to reinstall it once you get to the end. So we'll go ahead and leave the full name as John, and I'll go ahead and put a password in here and go ahead and hit next. So again, it says you did not enter a Windows product key. Windows will install without one, and you have to manually activate later. Would you like to continue? Yes. So now we have to name our virtual machine. And so I'm going to go ahead and change this to where I'm going to save it. But you can save it wherever you want. It really doesn't matter. You just need the memory, obviously, and you need to be able to access it. You can change the name of it if you want to as well. But for this purpose, I'm just going to leave it as is. Go ahead and hit next. Now, disk size. You can make this really whatever you want. With virtual machines, if you're using them in a test environment, you usually don't have to have them have a huge hard drive. So that's definitely important to keep in mind. But I'm going to basically leave as much stuff as default as possible, even though there's no way on this virtual machine for what I'm using it for that it's going to hit 60 gigs. But we'll leave it as that. And then you also have these options down here where you can store the virtual disk as a single file, or you can do it as multiple files. And then it says it's easier if you want to move it if you have it as multiple files. So we're just going to leave that as is. We don't need to really change that. Go hit next. Now I'm going to customize my hardware. And on this machine that I'm using, I actually have a lot of RAM and kind of a personal preference thing. And with Windows in general too, actually, it tends to take a lot of memory. So even though it says recommended is 2 gigabytes, I'm going to bump this up to 4, just so there's no issues or anything like that, especially once I start installing some services on here. And that is all I'm going to change. Everything else looks good. So I'll hit close and power this on after creation. Yes. So now I'm going to hit finish. All right, so now we have the options to do our different installations. This part is going to get interesting here and you'll see why, but you have basically a couple different options that you can do. You have your standard evaluation version, and then you have your data center evaluation version. Now, there are feature differences between the two, but for this example and in labs, things like that, I would always do the data center version. It's not going to be for some of the roles and things like that that you can assign, but there are for sure differences and limitations with the standard version versus data center. So I always install the data center version. And then you do have two options as well. You have this regular one, and then you have this desktop experience one. So I will install both so you can see what happens with both. But we're going to start out just doing the desktop experience one first. So I'll select that and then I will hit next. Now, this error threw me off. I had never seen this before, so I was interested why this came up and had to do some research in order to find out how to actually fix this. When you go through just normally and try to install it like you would any other virtual machine, for some reason, this error message comes up. And when you hit OK, what happens is it reboots the virtual machine installation. And it doesn't actually go through, or it doesn't actually finish the installation. So if you get that error, what you need to do is you need to right click on the virtual machine. And actually, I'll let you see here too. You get this timeout error. And so what you want to do is you want to right click on the virtual machine. You want to go to power and you want to go ahead and shut down the guest. Okay, shut down. And now we need to go into edit virtual machine settings. And then you're going to click on the floppy drive here. And we need to disable this. So we're going to uncheck this connect at power on. And for whatever reason, it's associated to that. Once we turn this off, we should be able to get into the actual installation process. So again, uncheck this connect at power and then hit OK. Then we're going to power the virtual machine back on. Okay, and then just like you saw, you might get that BIOS error or the error that you didn't shut it down properly. That's okay. If you get that, just hit enter. But as you saw in mine went ahead and just went right through it. So and I'm going to go ahead and make this full screen here. And so now you can see actually that we got a different dialog box when we first got in here. Remember on the first try that we had, it went into the actual box where we had to select either standard or the data center version. Now we're actually getting the box with the different languages to install and the time and currency format. So I'm going to leave it as English United States and hit next. Now we get this install now button. We're going to go ahead and click that. All right, now we're back to that same box where we need to decide which version we want to do. So again, I'm going to do the data center desktop experience version first, and then I'll come back and do the other version to show you the difference between the two. I'm going to select that one and then hit next. And then you can read through the terms. Again, this is what it was saying that it couldn't access, was the terms in that original error. So now we obviously have that. So read through it, hit next. Now we get this dialog box. So we can't upgrade because on this virtual machine, we didn't have an operating system on there. We didn't have Windows already. So that's the only way that you can do this first option. So we have to do this custom install. And if you had a lot of different hard drives or partitions, you would see them all on here. But since this is a specific hard drive that's for the virtual machine, we don't have any other ones. So we're going to go ahead and hit next. And we will let this go through the installation process here. Once this finishes up, then I'll check back in and we'll continue. Now I want to interrupt real quick while this is still installing and remind you that when you're going to an enterprise or you're getting into the actual field, the reason why you want to know Windows Server especially is because when you know Windows Server, there's just kind of this implied or assumed knowledge that you have when you know the server operating system. People just assume that you know the desktop version. So it's really important to know the server version, especially because when you get into an actual environment, a lot of the configurations and things like that are pushed out from the server. You don't do things locally on the operating system in a lot of cases. That's why you really want to know the server operating system. And you want to actually do the latest and greatest version because things change and they can change quickly between different versions. And especially on the latest version, there's a good chance that you could start working at a company that doesn't have the latest version. For instance, right now, there could be a company running 2016 or maybe even 2012. And if you know the latest version and the differences, that can be huge through that migration. Just want to point that out while this is still installing and it's getting pretty close to being done. So again, I'll check back in once this is done. All right, so it looks like it's ready to restart. I'll go ahead and hit restart now just to speed it up. And when this reboots, we should have a Windows operating system. So if you get this error, just go ahead and hit enter. No big deal. And fingers crossed that it worked. Getting ready, getting ready. I've been ready, I've been ready. And there we go. Okay, so now it's asking me for a password for the built-in administrator account. So this is the very last fail-safe account that has the ultimate privileges on this box. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a password. Okay, and then I will hit finish. And you can see too, the username is administrator. So just keep that in mind. So it looks like that worked. Now, when you're using VMware Workstation Pro, you can't actually do a Control-Alt-Delete into the system. because it's going to actually run it on your host system. So what you need to do is you need to do Control Alt Insert. Okay, and then enter your password. All right, and we are logging in for the first time into this operating system. It'll go ahead and set up all the configurations and things that it needs to do. And then there we are. So on this dialog box that popped up, you want to allow your computer to be discovered. I'm just going to hit yes on this. That's something you would want to consider for sure in an enterprise. But because this is a demo machine, I don't really care as far as that. This box is just telling you about the server manager, the Windows Admin Center. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And I'm going to change the resolution here by right-clicking on the desktop and do display settings. And I'm going to make it fit the screen here so it's not so small. So then I'm going to scroll down to resolution and I'm going to change the resolution. On this computer, it is 1920 by 1080. Okay, and keep changes. That looks good. Close that. There we go. A lot of what you're going to do on a server is based out of this server manager application. So that's why whenever you log into a server, this is always going to pop up every time. And this has a lot of your different stuff, which I'll go into in other videos. But basically what happens is as you add different things down here, you start getting different boxes, and you also have where you can add features and roles up here. And then also with the tools, this has a lot of your different stuff like task scheduler, local security policy, computer management, all that kind of stuff is straight out of here. That's what this particular application is. And that's why it pops up with every time you log in. Okay, so I didn't want to bore you with all the initial setup settings that I was doing for this, but I did the exact same thing that I did for the original desktop experience installation that we just did. But remember, I said I was going to also install the other version and show you the difference between the two. So I'm back here at the screen where I'm going to select the different versions. So just the regular data center evaluation version instead of the desktop experience version. And we're going to install this, and then we're going to take a look at the differences between the two. So here we go. Accept that. And let's see, we're going to do custom install again because this is a brand new virtual machine that I just created again. All right. And again, I'll go ahead and let this install. And then once this finishes, I'll check back in and then we'll compare the two versions. Okay, so this is the first reboot on that second installation. And as you can see, I have a command prompt window and it wants me to change the local administrator password to log in. All right, so I'll go ahead and put in the password here. You have to down arrow to get to the next box. And I'm going to hit enter now. All right, changing the password, successfully changed. Okay. And now it's going to go ahead and personalize some stuff. So you can see here that you only get a command prompt in this version. This is called the server core version. And the reason why this version exists is because a lot of the vulnerabilities that exist in the server operating system or in an operating system in general have to do with the GUI interface or the user interface, the graphical user interface. And so by doing this version, the server core version, you will eliminate a lot of those vulnerabilities. It's more of a stripped down version that has less of an attack surface is what we call it. And so you can still do everything basically in here in this version, but you've got to do it through command line. So that makes it significantly more challenging, especially if you're a beginner, because you're not going to be an expert in the command line. It's something to definitely kind of, check out and be aware of. But of course, you have the desktop experience version that you can install as well. So it really just depends as far as which one you need to know. But again, you get a full command shell in here, and you can go to PowerShell and all that stuff as well. So I just typed PowerShell, and that's how you can switch to PowerShell. And there we go. So again, it's just a different version. So if I flip back to the other version, remember, this is the one that had the full-on experience. This has the full desktop GUI like we're used to. Just keep that in mind when you're looking at the two versions, that you probably do want to play around with both just to get an idea of what they're like. It depends on your environment which one you're actually going to use. Now, question of the day. What's your experience level with Windows Server? Let me know down in the comment section below. Remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Head on over to my website at johngood.com for more training courses, and I'll see you next time.